Avoiding your chores on the farm again? One of the ship's compasses had broken a few days earlier, busted beyond repair, when they'd strayed too close to the small island, Kirkin's smaller twin, in a matter of speaking, given they were both man-made islands formed by the long-defunct Clint Kingdom that was all cliff faces on the exterior of it. The monsters there were particularly strong, but they usually stayed within the boundaries of their island home. But a small dragon type had flown out to sea in curiosity and attacked the nearby ship. It probably felt threatened by the unfamiliar creatures scurrying about atop the wooden deck. No one was too badly hurt, thankfully, and Edward had treated the worst of their injuries upon the fishing crew's return. But the compass was at a loss. Of course, Ryza knew how to make compasses. Small ones, anyway, for adventuring. They'd called her in to inspect the damaged compass, and then a working one over on another ship. Once she'd had a good look at both, Ryza had been certain she could make a new one of her own. It'd save the fishermen money not to have to commission one all the way from another city, and it'd net Ryza a tiny little profit of her own. Win-win, since she needed the funds to continue with her alchemy, and to save away for the day she could leave the village herself to visit with her friends.
Just delivering the compass, Agatha. Then I'm back home to help with the morning harvest. I'm heading to the Pixie Forest after lunch. Anything you want from the mainland while I'm there?
Working on a new alchemy recipe? Aside from modifying her compass recipe to create a ship's compass, Ryza's inspiration had dropped off a bit since Tao and Boss had left a few weeks earlier, the last of her friends to leave the island. Klaudia, Ampel, and Lila had been the first to go, returning to the capital in a single caravan. Lent left a few weeks later after another big fight with his father. One he won, as he's been wont these days. Ryza still couldn't get Lent to stop blaming himself for not being able to stand up to his father before Lila trained him. He could see when other children were abused by their parents, it wasn't their fault. But with himself, Lent leaving had actually pushed his drunk of a father to dry up, though. Time would tell if it was a permanent change, but it was a relief to see, even if it wasn't. But then, Tao and Boss's test scores came back, and they'd both passed with flying colors. The school that they'd applied to wanted their attendance as soon as was convenient, so they'd packed up and spent one last day with Ryza at the Atelier before. Ryza had sat alone in her atelier afterwards, curled up in her bed there, and just cried. She didn't want to be the one who was left behind. Before everything began, she'd been the one most eager to leave the island, to have adventures, and to get far, far away from a life that felt stifling. Then Klaudia, Ampel, and Lila came into Ryza's life. Ampel had shown Ryza the power to take control of her own destiny, and opened her eyes to a greater view of the world around her, the sins of her ancestors that, as an alchemist descended of the survivors of the Clint Kingdom, she felt personally responsible for helping to amend. Lila had shown her that her responsibilities didn't include being punished for her ancestors' actions. Part of her had waited for Lila to be angry with them. Certainly, after living through the transformation of her homeland into a desolate place because of the Clint Kingdom's theft of the underworld's water and deliberate exploitation of the Orin, and all, so they could harness the power the Belucia would create without the main source of water in the area to hold them back. And Klaudia had given Ryza a reason to fight. She gave Ryza hope for the future. Her music brought Ryza joy when she was sad, and her smiles gave Ryza energy when she was tired in the middle of a difficult synthesis. Without Klaudia there with her, everything felt harder.
Just improving my skills on the recipes I already know. And Edward asked me to restock his medical supplies again.
Come find me after lunch instead, then. I've got a few ideas for you.
Hey!
Spirits like yours aren't meant to be so down, Ryza. I'll see you at your parents' house after lunchtime, alright?
I'll see you then. Okay, so what are these big ideas of yours?
Well, I've been looking at all those books of Tao's. Can't read any of them yet, but I've been trying to learn out of that preliminary premiere he wrote. It was so strange to realize just how much these children had done for our island, and I might never had known if Boss hadn't taken me aside afterwards and told me before he left. They were all growing up so fast.
Oh, so you've been visiting his library too? I knew someone else was, but I hadn't caught you at it yet.
Well, I saw some diagrams of what I think is an irrigation setup I used to keep the fields watered more efficiently during dry seasons. I thought maybe you could try your hand at it. Might lessen some of the farm chores of yours if the fields could basically water themselves.
Now that's an idea I can get behind!
I thought you might make your mother a little more accepting of your aims for being an alchemist instead of a farmer.
She doesn't think it's a total waste of my time anymore. Or at least she isn't saying it to my face anymore. But yeah, she's still not sold on it as a future for me. But if alchemy can help the farm more directly, then maybe she'll finally see what I do.
Like the fisherman had, they'd been eager to accept Ryza's help, and then to blame her when it turned out the fish bait had only been a temporary solution, and to blame Empel for the problem with the fish happening at all. Never mind that they'd been reporting lower intake of fish for weeks before Empel and Lila first arrived on the island. That their people had nearly exiled 2 people for the crime of bad timing. Well, I had never been more ashamed. It had all worked out for the best in the end, and now Ryza's alchemy business had no better clients than the fishermen, who, thoroughly cowed by proof that sea monsters did exist, had learned to heed Ryza's warnings regarding the efficacy of her bait. They sought her out for improved fishing nets, waterproofing for fixing holes in the hull, and, most recently, a broken compass. Still, I have been noticing a slow melancholy setting in on Ryza these days, ever since the Valence girl had left for the city. It reminded me a bit of how I had felt after returning to the island, after leaving Megan behind. I don't regret my decision to return home to become a guardian, but sometimes I wonder what might have happened if I had stayed. If I had told Megan how I had felt, would Megan have felt the same? Of course, all of Ryza's other friends leaving around the same time had been rather unfortunate timing for the girl too, and it was possible, or more likely probable, that I'm reading in too much regarding Ryza's feelings for Klaudia, though I am fairly certain that Klaudia definitely had feelings for Ryza. I couldn't be completely wrong. Hopefully, anyway. Well, Old Town had been rising back up above the sea level. The small port there is noticeably inches higher than it was a few months ago. It doesn't seem to be affecting the main port, thankfully, but as Old Town rises back up from the sea, it'd be useful to have a method for cleaning it back up for historical preservation purposes, or even so, people can move back into their family homes. I'm not exactly sure what we need to do that, but
There might even be some interesting alchemy instruments in lost buildings. Tao, Lent, and I actually found an old alchemy device used for concentrating gases for use in alchemical recipes in the canal one afternoon.
That wouldn't happen to be the afternoon you and Tao dammed up the canals to stop the water flow?
No comment. And in fairness, the water levels are at an all-time high since Tao and I fixed the machinery under the island. So you can't hold that against us anymore.
Oh, I can't. Can I? With the water no longer being produced exclusively from the Brennan residence, and given what I had been learning about the island, I was a bit suspicious now of just where that water was coming from. It meant that the people of Kirkin Island were no longer beholden to the Brennans either. It changed the island's political structure in a way that, in my opinion, was a long time coming. The Brennans weren't bad people, but the imbalance of wealth and power between their family and the rest of the islanders had never been totally healthy either. But nothing was settled yet, and everyone was still figuring out just how much power and privilege they were willing to allow Moritz Brennan to maintain due to his wealth and merchant connections. So yes, Ryza and Tao had arguably made up for their previous shenanigans by restoring the island's original water source, but they had also triggered a minor power crisis among the island's leaders, a crisis that I had the good sense to stay out of, and that Ryza was likely totally oblivious to. Thankfully, Moritz was too busy being annoyed for the part Boz had played in things to pay attention to Ryza's part at all, even with his son having left for school on the mainland. It helped that Lumber tended to point Moritz away from Ryza, likely quietly protecting her on Boz's orders.
Oh, speaking of the whole canal debacle, I found a new method of waterproofing stone. So, I could probably fix any broken areas on the canal, too.
Yeah, well, if it requires emptying the canals to fix, then maybe run it past the town elders first this time. Ryza had fun figuring out how to make an irrigation system. It takes her a few days to figure out something viable, and she makes a few miniature systems first. She sets up a large test system for the garden Lent and Tao built for her outside the Atelier. She hooks it up to a pump system that reaches the same source as her well. A few pumps, and the water flows down the pipes and out to every plant in the garden. It took a few tries to figure out the materials she needed to work with and the qualities of the final items, but it was worth it for the final result. Once she had something like this set up for her parents' farm, no more lugging around buckets of water all over the place, and it could be adjusted so that each plant received the ideal amount of water too. Now, to get her parents on board with the idea. Maybe if she had me explain it with her? After all, it was my idea. Though, Ryza wished Klaudia were here to see her success. She'd be so proud of Ryza, building something so useful. Now, I see why Ryza's smiling like that. She misses Klaudia a lot. Claudia's smile always warmed Ryza to see, but now, just the thought of Klaudia directing such a happy, carefree, kind expression at her made her cheeks heat, and her chest go tight, and her insides go all warm and gooey. She missed that smile far too much. It was just Claudia's smile, which was a little odd. Tao, Boss, Lent, Empel, Lila, none of them made Ryza feel that way. She missed them, but she didn't go all topsy-turvy at the thought of them. It was weird. Ryza just didn't know how to turn it off. But maybe that was something she could ask me about too. Goodness knew she couldn't ask her parents about it. Her dad would start comparing it to some farm thing or another. And her mom hadn't approved of her friendship with Klaudia anyway, because she thought Klaudia was too good for a troublemaker like Ryza. Much as her mother wanted Ryza to stop embarrassing her around town, Ryza wanted her mom to realize just once that not everything Ryza did was automatically bad. So, no, this wasn't something Ryza's parents could be trusted with. I, at least, would take Ryza seriously. So, with great reluctance, Ryza brought me to the Atelier to show off the garden. It was her safe space, and it wasn't on the island, so Ryza was very concerned that I would try to bar her from going there anymore and force her to move her alchemy work back to the island. But instead... Oh, nice! This area has a natural monster repellent in the bedrock.
Yeah. I mean, there's a pony that likes to hang out on the deck, but he's harmless. I feed him stuff and he brings me things sometimes. And, I got this training thing that Empo left here. It looks kind of like a weasel, but it's just a mechanical training device made with old alchemy or something like that. He wasn't too clear. Mostly I just treat it like a pet. It likes ear scratches. Anyway, the prototype is over here in my garden. Neat, huh?
This is quite useful. So, how are you going to hook the one for the farm up to the canals? This is really well made, Ryza.
Thanks. And, I don't intend to hook it up to the canals. So looking at Tao's books, it seems there used to be more fountains all over the island. I found one by the farm that's broken. But if I can repair it, then I can hook the irrigation system up to that. And it's closer to the fields, making it more convenient as a source of water for everyone in that area too. But while I'm repairing that, I can start working on selling my parents on me building a larger scale version of this for our crops. And, that's where I need your help, because my mom would never take this seriously if it just comes from me.
Of course I'll help. Do you need any help with the fountain too? Even if it's just moving supplies around?
Careful, I might just take you up on that. I'm going to have to do some stonework repair to fix the basin. My waterproofing technique can finally get shown off. Though, actually, if you or the other Guardians could go check out the other fountains on the island, that'd be great. It'd be good to have them marked down on current maps and see if any are still working or otherwise in need of repairs. I think there may be 5 more unaccounted for in the forest areas. And that's not even counting the ones that are submerged with the parts of Old Town that sank. It's too bad I can't go under the water deep enough to inspect those yet.
Interesting. If Old Town kept rising at its current rate, Ryza probably could reach the fountains in a year or 2. It would take significantly longer for that part of the town to finish surfacing again, but so much of what had been lost over the years could finally be reclaimed. Tell me where the fountains should be located, and we'll check them out.
Awesome! It'd be nice to repair the rest of them too one day, but this fountain is the only one that'd be useful right now. Agatha, when you came back from the capital, was there anyone who really stood out when you missed them?
Stood out? In what way?
I miss my friends. Tao and Lent and Bose especially, because I've known them all my life. But then, with Klaudia, I miss the sound of her playing the flute and how musical her laughter is and the way her smile seemed to make everything brighter, and it's all so different from how I miss everyone else.
So, I was right, after all.
Right about what?
Have anywhere I can make some tea? In that atelier of yours?
Yeah, this way.
Feeding the pony on the way, Ryza led the way up and into the refurbished atelier. I made some tea in the workshop, using some of Ryza's alchemy supplies, and looked over to the traveler's map on display in the main room, while the water came to a boil. The 6 of you did some impressive traveling while everyone was still here. Though, are these the taboo areas?
Taboo, because a battle was fought there long ago. And lost. The Felucia are gone now, so the only reason not to go there is tradition. The alchemic devices that summon big monsters only do so in response to the Felucia, and, well, with the portal between worlds closed, we don't have to worry about Felucia showing back up anytime soon. Bose did tell you about the Felucia, right?
Giant insect monsters that children shouldn't have been fighting? I'm proud of what you did, though, even if you shouldn't have been the one who did it. I do understand why Empel and Lila didn't want to trust us after we nearly exiled them over a misunderstanding and hearsay, but it was still too much to put on 4 people so young. She didn't know how to explain that as an alchemist descended from the Clint Kingdom, she'd felt such a personal responsibility towards finding and implementing a solution that would benefit both humans and Orin alike. Alchemists like her had looked at the power they wielded and felt no responsibility for the consequences their actions would inflict on others because they were others. Ryza herself had been inspired to alchemy after seeing it used for destructive purposes, and she had felt the need to prove that destructiveness wasn't inherently bad, that destroying a problem, like a monster, could save people, and that was a good thing. Her alchemy could be a good thing. So, Klaudia is pretty special to you, huh? I had a friend who was very special to me in training. We did everything together. We were inseparable. She'd smile, and the room lit up. She'd hold my hand, and I'd get these flutters in my chest, like everything was warm and good, and would stay that way forever if she just hold my hand every day. Is how you feel about Klaudia a little like that?
A lot like that.
Do you think maybe you've got a crush on her?
A crush?
I felt that way about Megan. I never found out if she felt the same way, though. When I decided to leave to come back home to Kirkin Island, she got angry with me. All our plans for the future as knights, and I was blowing it as far as she was concerned. And when I asked her to come with me, she said no. So I never told her about what lay in my heart for her.
Oh, Agatha. I'm so sorry. That must have hurt a lot to part with her on those terms. Oh gosh, I've got a crush on Klaudia.
I'm pretty sure she likes you back.
I'm not gonna see her again for years. What if Claudia's feelings change in that time?
What if they don't? And what if yours doesn't either? You might even get to kiss your girl.
Don't tease.
Alright then, let's plan what we'll say to your mother about the irrigation project then. Safer territory, Ryza nods. But now that you realize just why she felt so different about Klaudia, it seemed obvious. Well, Ryza supposed that feelings were more Claudia's strong point than hers. If Klaudia did feel the same way about Ryza, the way Agatha thought she did, it probably didn't take her nearly so long to recognize the reason why. And she didn't need someone else to point out the obvious either. Klaudia would probably find the whole thing cute. When, if Ryza found the courage, that is, Ryza told her the story.